Okay, so the final panel is discussing the digital duopoly. So basically looking at how they potentially are the elephant in the room. They control 38% of overall spend. And what do us as an industry, publishers, how do we navigate that? So to chair the panel, which is contained of Haymarket Media, Solskjaer, B-Sky B and Time Inc., I have Tim Chairman, who is the chairman of the AOP. And I'm sure he would definitely mind me saying that he is an industry veteran. He is an industry veteran, and I reckon we'll now bring up Tim Faircliff. Thank you very much. Rev it up, chaps. Sorry. Can you make it a bit more exciting?
I have been given an instruction, which is to raise the energy in the room, because apparently it's all a bit flat. So, we're going to talk about the digital duopoly. So I've decided to invite Facebook and Google into the room. Are they here? Oh dear. They're not here, but we have some great panelists. So can I introduce the panelists to you one by one as they come up. I asked them in a rehearsal last week to give me one interesting fact about themselves, and I got no replies. So I'd like to welcome Lee Williams, whose interesting fact that I've discovered as the Director of Digital Revenues for Haymarket Media. He is the most driven, enthusiastic, passionate and successful leader I've ever had the pleasure of working for, said somebody.
Fantastic.
So welcome, Lee. Secondly, Hitesh Bhatt, the Digital Revenue and Strategy Controller for my favourite brand, B-Sky B. He is known as an extremely focused individual with a logic-led approach to leadership. Welcome, Hitesh. Next up, Don Perkins of Time, the Commercial Development Director, who incidentally on his LinkedIn page has no recommendations about him whatsoever, but he used to work for the FT and News, so welcome. And finally, John, if you'd like to come up, I just need to find out your interesting fact. Apparently you care about art and culture. John Sweet, Director of Search for Solskjaer, and today he's going to talk a little bit about City AM. So welcome, everybody. He also has 15 years' experience in digital media and real-time biddable media. As a very quick introduction, I'm the chairman of AOP. AOP is one of those trade bodies that's been referred to a lot today who are going to solve all the problems as an industry. So my call out to you is it's not just about the trade bodies, it's about you. So get involved with the AOP, get involved with IAB. Don't sit there in the corner and slag us off, because you've got to get involved. So get involved, join AOP, IAB, whichever one suits you, preferably AOP. And together, as an industry, we're going to solve some of these issues. Do not sit on the touchline and throw grenades, please. So, Facebook and Google, according to this, represent 38% of the total digital display in the US. And they're stealing the lunch of these gentlemen next to me. John, how do you see your role as City AM in navigating those two big organisations that we have to love and hate? How do you tackle them?
They're choppy waters at the moment, obviously, so we're in a very defensive position. We understand the value of our content is our production of that content. And we understand that that duopoly is always looking to take hold of that content and monetize it in a way that doesn't necessarily suit our brand or suit our audience. So we're always looking for opportunities, if you like, to ensure that we own the relationship with the audience and it's not mediated, because in a mediation there is always a payback.
Does your content have to change in its scale, its size and quality if those two organisations are going to be where your content is appearing more than your home area?
Yeah, the kind of digital journey is, we've all kind of generally drifted into this notion of clickbait and shorter pieces, a little bit more video. And what we're finding our audience actually wants is more engaged content. They might come back to us 3 or 4 times during the day, but they're looking at each of those opportunities as a time for us to tell them something. Not for a headline that means nothing to the content, not for, an opportunity to serve them 17 ads, but actually just to maintain that relationship, maintain that touch point. They have a requirement, we fill it.
Okay. I'm going to come back to you later about ad blockers. City AM done an interesting thing on ad blockers in the last couple of days. Not sure I totally agree with it, so we might have a little bit of a question mark over that one. What about Haymarket? Is it choppy waters for you around Google and Facebook?
Well, frankly, I think they're evil.
Evil. Brilliant.
So 40...
Haymarket says evil.
Lee Williams said they were evil.
Oh, Williams. Right, okay.
40% of the revenue of Digital UK leaves the country with no tax attached to it. We're not too sure which country it actually goes to, number one. We all work hard and employ people and work hard on content and pay those components. Number two, it's the great con. They have basically, and we've collectively done it to drive traffic, built out loads of SEO long-term pages, enabling them to capture all our data and all our deep search terms. We built YouTube channels of 500,000 subscribers where we get no revenue. I couldn't even buy you all a beer off last month's check. And what they've done then is built...
Pubmatic are to do that.
Are they doing that?
Yeah.
Great. I might stay for a couple then. Heading into Facebook, it's pretty similar, isn't it? We all work hard on driving social shares, and obviously I was on PistonHead this morning looking at McLaren 570, and that's been now tagged on Facebook in a logged in state. I've built some brand pages today, and of course they've collected all that data. So all of us here have built their ecosystem for them. We built it. And actually the reality now is over the last 12 months, most of us are now starting to build our own. So they were smart, perhaps rather than evil. And now it's about our turn to actually build out those data sets really deeply. And as a vertical publisher, which Haymarket is, just speaking for Haymarket now, we have this amazing engagement, content depth. We capture content, engagement factors on our sites, leads, applications and tools. Now it's about us basically taking that to market to demonstrate actually we know more about this audience that these guys are ripping £5 out of 10 off us. We pay our taxes.
Blimey, so it is economics after all. Amir was right. Hitesh, you're happily behind your own wall anyway at BSkyB, so you don't really care, do you?
It's not all behind a wall. I agree on the tax point, Lee, so well done there. Look, I don't think they're evil. I think they're very clever. I think that publishers as a collective have allowed them to do what they've done. At Sky, we engage with them, of course we do, but they're more of a promotional vehicle for us, really. Our real crown jewels content doesn't sit with other people, and frankly, nor should it. We spent billions on it, literally, so that John Terry could get a nice new Range Rover and so on. So, as long as you're not making, short-term decisions about your engagement with them, I think they're a necessary evil, maybe. I think it can work. They're a decent promotional vehicle for us as much as anything else. Clearly, both the big ones openly talk about how much money they want to take out of the TV market, right? We also work with them, one of them is their ad server, right? So you kind of have this relationship with them, but it's slightly guarded because, frankly, they want to eat, our lunch, breakfast and dinner at the same time.
But there's an addiction piece I think you're alluding to as well.
I think addiction's quite strong. I think it's a useful relationship from a promotional point of view. We certainly know our audiences very well. We're starting to build out really strong data propositions, and if we've got context and great environments, if we've got great data, you can compete with them. Perhaps publishers need to work closer together to develop the scale to do that.
Hallelujah, they should form a publisher alliance like Symakia, the AOP alliance.
Tim paid me to say that, obviously. But no, I think that's a way forward. We've built a data proposition recently which is unique, which nobody else has, which is based on TV viewing data, and taken that to our digital platforms and enable people to retarget or target people who've seen a TV commercial or who haven't seen a TV commercial or a sponsorship or a show or whatever. Facebook can't do that. Google can't do that.
Okay. Right, time. Didn't you invent the pre-roll yourself anyway?
I did invent the pre-roll, absolutely.
Yeah, I seem to remember that.
I think from a Time Inc. point of view, I think it's an opportunity, and I think we should all be looking at it as an opportunity. There's no reason to be scared. I think we already see this in a way, I suppose, in the TV world. Suddenly everyone's producing content, putting it on the TV networks, and they're monetizing it. And I 100% agree with you in terms of data. We have huge scale and breadth of data that we're collecting every day, and we're working out ways of building that into a really rich opportunity for advertisers and also for our own internal use. But I think if we sit there and try and fight against an expansion of our audiences across Facebook, across Apple News, across wherever, then, you know, as a publisher, you're just not doing your job. You know, our content is consumable not just on our own platforms. It's consumable wherever it should go. And if that's on Facebook, then great. But you also have to remember that Facebook still only gets from their brands a 1 in 10,000 like. That's not the greatest of attention, if you like. That's no different from ads on publisher sites. So a publisher that sits there, certainly from a magazine point of view, and goes, I have Marie Claire, everyone's going to check into Marie Claire every day and come back to my site, is fooling themselves. It's about search. It just so happens that people are finding it on Facebook, they're finding it on Twitter, they're finding it on wherever. But they're still going to come to our sites because search is not going anywhere. So from that point of view, I think we have to look at it as a real opportunity.
Did you worry about control or not? Are you saying that you feel in control as a publisher?
Facebook, everything we try and do is about regaining control of our assets, okay? But one of the things that, as publishers, we've been fighting against, and you know, from my background, I've worked on both sides, there are so many ad tech companies out there that are supposed to be working on behalf of publishers and on behalf of brands that are taking just as much control away from us as Facebook, as anybody else. So at least with Facebook and with the other platforms, we're putting our content out there and we have some kind of control over. It would be great if we could also take that data and have a unified piece of data that worked across Google, across Apple, and across Facebook, so we could then understand that market more effectively across our own sites. But I don't think that's going to happen in the near future. But at the same time, we are trying to remain in control of what we're doing. But if we fight it, you'll just end up losing.
I think I understand. What I'm concerned about from the publishers that the AOP works with is that control is a regular theme. Control and context, trust, integrity in the content. And the Google, Facebook duopoly, and there's probably a triopoly if you put Apple alongside them as well, perhaps. I as an ex-publisher myself, I would worry about that. And I know Haymarket worry about that, if that's the right word.
Yeah.
How
So what are we doing about it? So
well, there is a case of the elephant in the room is great panel, really interesting, Facebook, Google eating our lunch, but let's go and have a beer type thing. How do you see that?
If you were to think
control?
like that in your category, if it's £5 out of 10, and I think it is because I don't think the numbers are estimated properly, then next year it's £6, and in 2020 it'll be £7. It's just going to completely escalate, and you know I think we'll all be right coming back in 4 years' time to see that. So you've got to move. So all the publishers here do have amazing data. So we've all been working hard on building out that position and going to market. That's driving ads, it's driving content personalization, I suspect, and all those other components. That's one part of the strategy. The point that I think is interesting is I'm not going to rely on American platforms fully to build up our distribution. So given that some of us are veterans here, if they are equivalent to Costco and Walmart, we need to work with, dare I say it, the likes of Tesco, Sainsbury's. Now, who are those? It's the other publishers in the room. Whether that's via your activity on the platform, which we're a key founding member, as you know, or alternatively what we're doing now is working with other partners to build out motoring platforms. We've just partnered with ESI and Trinity Mirror, more to be announced shortly, building out motoring platforms with them, building out data for us, data for them, shared equally. Excitingly, in 12 weeks, the unique numbers have gone from 300,000 to 700,000 across those two partners. That's how we're going to build it, is work collaboratively with other people who've got the same challenges. Then we can build out much more interesting places and start to regain the control. We are definitely playing with those players. We launched in Apple News with Stuff and What Hi-Fi last night, and Apple are giving us some data back, which is a nice start, and we'll be pushing that barrel hard. But having a broad strategy with different players playing, I just can't be reliant on those two.
Okay. I like the idea of partnerships. From a Sky perspective, your valuable data that you've described before, are you forming important partnerships to deliberately to go against this duopoly, or just forming strategic partnerships because that's a necessary function of how you see your content moving forward?
It's not specifically to go against these two. I mean, they are big players in the market, taking a lot of revenue. So, yes, you know, we are competing with them. It's forming partnerships to build scale, to make more money, frankly. Right? Let's be honest. You know, that's what it's about. With the TV viewing data, that's something that's very, very nascent. It was only launched this week on Tuesday. You know, in the first instance, effectively, we're building our own walled garden with it because it's really valuable data, and we're still learning. Yep. It's not to say that further down the road, it won't be available in a different way with to agencies, but that's the way we're operating. You know, I don't think we're fearful of these big beasts in the room because we have retained control. You know, anybody can retain control. Don't give them your best content, right? Keep your best content on your site and use them to drive traffic to your site.
The promotional vehicle.
Yeah.
Okay. The next question is more around what impact it has on society, which is quite a big question. But given your interest in arts and science, John, I thought you might be able to take this question. I'm merely an economist, so I just assume everything's perfect.
How would you know?
But particularly the actions that City AM have taken to formally expose the issue of ad blockers to their readers and offer them the choice of buggering off or staying in type thing. What's the impact of some of the changes that have been debated about today that Pubmatic are at the heart of as well, on a free, fair internet with questions around data, around safe harbours, around ad blocking? I could carry on. How do you see the impact of technology on risking that free, fair internet, if that's an aspirational vision?
Well, I think it's worth remembering that the City AM don't really have a problem with ad block. Or we didn't have a problem with ad block. Ad block levels are relatively quite low.
Percentage?
Quite low. 50.
More than 10?
More than 10, yeah. So kind of heading to
less than 20?
Yes, in the middle of 15 and...
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So we don't have a massive issue with it. It's an issue, but it's containable and we have a particular audience. For us, it was more of a test to say, okay, if we ask, how should we ask? How do we approach our audience? Because any issue with ad blocking has to be a conversation with your audience. It's just something we can't impose solutions. We've imposed ads, and that's not worked out so well. So we have to engage our audience and say, look, you know, this is the harsh reality of it, and we have a very commercial audience. So, you know, different audiences, different conversations. And let's see how it goes. And it has been a toe in the water. And it's worth remembering that there's no monolithical ad block community, as it were. What's happened recently is we've managed to incredibly annoy casual users. People who, you know, won't even walk out the room if a TV ad's on, but are now using ad block because we've driven them to it almost by too many ads, badly behaved ads, too many sites you can't go to without crashing your phone, and all this kind of stuff. But at the bottom of that is a political ad block, where people take a response to any advert that in any way targets them and tracks them. So what we've seen at City AM has been a broad acceptance, and it's only been a tiny little test of a particular market with a particular browser. But what has happened in the last 3 days has been a massive denial of service attack. It's been contained and whatever, but as a response...
From Estonia or somewhere?
Well, distributed, so all over the place. Because there was a kind of media profile associated with that decision to test ad blocking. And I'm pretty certain that none of our normal readership would be at all interested in, you know, kind of attacking us for the use of an anti-ad block, if you like. Yeah. So there's a political, we'll never satisfy them. They'll never use Apple News, they will never use Google AMP, they will never use Facebook. And those guys, we just ignore them, you know. Tag them up, sell them as an audience. It's possible, you know. Wipe them off, but it's that core middle ground that we have to be careful of, because those guys will use Apple because they trust them. They will use Facebook because they trust them. They will use Google because they're there.
But
why don't they trust us is a question we have to ask ourselves.
They trust time, so move this on to time in, because I don't want to make this an ad blocking panel, because then I'd be going off message and Jonas would get annoyed, which wouldn't be a good thing. But the free, fair internet, the trust in your brands, of which, you know, trust is a huge connection that you have with your users, audience, consumers, people, whatever you describe them as. Does ad blocking particularly, or any of the data challenges that you face as publishers and that the world at large face, do you feel that bigger picture of you're part of the free, fair internet, and you've got a duty as a publisher to take action, if that's the right thing, or to have a viewpoint?
I work on the commercial side, so...
You work on the...
Commercial side, so yes, I want to make as much money as I possibly can, because I get paid more for doing so. But at the same time, I also know that our users are looking at ways around ads, purely because they just, as you've mentioned, they kill speed of page, they kill the environment, and it's not a great experience, because we allow people, in some cases, to take 80 different data points from one ad. That is killing the internet environment. It's as simple as that. So imagine if we did, and we're not saying we're giving everything away to Google and to Facebook and everybody else, but we need to work with them. And imagine if they could monetize a lot of our content, and we could make our sites a lot easier to use for the consumer, and make it easier for them to navigate around and get deeper into our articles and give back perhaps more of what they want, rather than running ads every 5 seconds in front of them. Now, I'm an ad person, so I should be completely against that. But we were lucky enough yesterday, or the day before, yesterday I think it was, to have Don Hoffman come into Time Inc. and talk to us about his view on the world. And, you know, we have to ask ourselves the question, exactly what it is we're trying to do when we're looking at ad blocking, when we're looking at data, when we're looking at other platforms. And I think, as an industry, and we've heard it all day today, we're all quite clearly looking up our own arses, trying to work out what it is, how we can make more money, right the way through from the advertisers themselves, right the way down. And I think if we want to have better consumption of our media, we have to understand exactly what people want. And it could be that, you know, that the ad blockers are kids in their bedrooms who know how to use it. It could be a 55-year-old man at home going, you know, again, I know how to use ad blockers and I want to consume my media in this way. We have to understand that, and I don't think we do as publishers, because all we're doing is chasing money.
I mean, Sky is quite different in some respects. You know, we've got some free products, the apps and the websites. A lot of our users still think they're paying for it, particularly for their Sky subscribers. They think it's part of the Sky package. Right? We've got a very effective internal ad blocking team. It's called the editorial team. Right? They really take care of the user experience, right? And they're very strict about what we can and can't do. And we have to prove, you know, beyond any doubt that this isn't going to really terribly affect the user experience. It still doesn't mean people won't block our ads. I think the job that we have to do now is to better explain the value exchange to our users or customers or viewers, whatever you want to call it. Because, you know, there is a kind of contract that they can get free internet in return for seeing ads, but it's not been really explained, it's just an understood thing. If you look at Channel 4, and it pains me to say that Channel 4 did something very well, but when they introduced the collection of data for 4 on demand, they did a great video with Alan Carr explaining that we want your data, it gives you better advertising experiences, we won't do anything nasty with it, and he just made it very simply clear to users what they want from an advertising perspective, and they built up a database of 12 million users, you know, who've signed in to their product.
And they're not rinsing them over and over.
They've got quite a high ad load, so I would suggest they're rinsing them a bit. I would say that. But, you know, they did it in a very clever way.
Sky admires Channel 4, love it, good headline, tweet that, great.
Delete that tweet.
Okay, I particularly like your comment about the editorial team being the best ad blocking, you said, but ad quality team, I would sort of steal your comment on, because
You've not
certainly
met my editorial team, obviously, but yeah.
when I worked with editorial teams back in the early days of digital at the Telegraph, the editorial teams were all powerful. That's a shit ad, Tim, take it off. They marched Google out of the building when Google was selling the early version of AdWords. We're not having that shit on every page. They were powerful. What's happened? Have the editorial journalists become so weakened that they don't stand up to you commercial dudes? And let you can rinse them?
Far from it. So actually, interesting for our place, we set ourselves a challenge, actually probably led commercially with product and content to get back to magazine style experiences, to get to one visible ad, period. We've already seen that, we've already been cutting back and seeing the performance impacts. We've been testing on piston heads. We're running half the inventory we ran last year or 2 years ago in terms of volume of ads. And obviously, there's other components in that, and there's a higher revenue. We're also looking at, actually, in our portfolio, we have other ways of making money. We have used car, new car lead generation. We have hi-fi retail engines. We have subscriptions, which is still an amazing business. So why are we serving an ad to the user? So what we're looking at doing now is creating a decision engine that actually looks at what is the best commercial component. If that was a magazine subscription or your next 911 to buy, it wouldn't look like an ad. It's a cliche native format. So there's a whole host of ways we're looking at, but we're pretty passionate. And obviously, there's a few brands that are fortunate enough not to be one-trick display wonders that we can test this with. So I would expect in the next 3 months and 6 months, we'll start seeing some quite exciting changes in how we portray the ads alongside other approaches to beat this issue.
Okay. So, is there a danger of premium content, which is always quite hard to define, but let's assume you've all got premium content, I think you have. The danger of commoditization. So that's a bit of a buzzword today. Let's not use commoditization. Is it in danger of becoming a commodity due to the digital duopoly in terms of your content, timing?
Well, we've just invested, £6.5 million in buying a cycling events company. So we as Time Inc. are not seeing ourselves, and we don't put ourselves out there as magazine publishers. We're content owners. Now that could be a cycling event company. That could be us buying into Snap Fashion.
Sorry, I didn't. You'll see yourself as a content
company.
Okay.
So we're not just producing magazines. We're engaging with our users. And as I say, that could be through events. We've also bought a company called Invent as well, which, these are different areas of the business that we're working with. And it's about changing the commercial model that we've known for years, which is selling ads. It's not all just about selling ads. And, again, I mention it again, it would be good to have less ads on the site. And the ads that are on there paying 2, 3, 4 times as much to be in that environment, to be at the right time because of the data and everything else that goes with it. That would be a good place to be for premium publishers. Now, we've got everything from wallpaper and Time and Fortune right the way down to Mousebreaker. We could have people seeing Mousebreaker games as more premium than Fortune. These are things, again, that come down to the consumer, and it's the consumer's decision. They may be willing for their exchange to put data, email address, whatever else it might be, for a free play of the game, rather than having to sit through a ridiculously long pre-roll. These are the things that we as publishers need to experiment with, and that could be experimenting with ad blockers. That could be looking at Apple News and testing those kind of areas. That could be looking at completely taking all ads off of our site and monetizing elsewhere. These are the things that we're fortunate enough at Time Inc. to be able to experiment with.
I think Philipson's left the room, but do you imagine an ad-free day as part of that experiment, where on a particular Tuesday, let's see what happens if we actually don't take any ads on any of our content and see.
I think we did it once, didn't we, when DFP went down for a while? So that was an ad-free day. But again, it is, there are ways of making money as content owners that doesn't always have to be chasing banner ads on a mobile phone that has a click rate of 5% because people can't turn it off. They're the things that you know, make an experience for a publisher, as a user on a publisher site, really bad.
Isn't a great ad a great piece of content? And to the comments earlier about creativity, that's the position. Thanks to all the data targeting we're now doing, or hugging, might be a better word, based on the earlier presentations. If you can get the right ad, and it's clever, and it's engaging, fantastic. I think something
Is advertising content as well as your editorial?
absolutely. I mean,
Of course it is.
on our sites, 60% of them are motoring content, and if you're targeting the right person about the right type of car, happy days. And you can see that beyond the clicks when you actually look at other metrics such as engagement and brand change impressions. The other interesting thing around the sort of ad content play is, as you've done to there, Dominic, on time, is you're moving it through to different experiences. So we're working with lots of great companies now, mostly premium manufacturers, on day experiences captured via the web ads and content ads. So we've got Aston Martin day experiences, and they're humming and great revenue and fabulous, and then we get loads of viral behind it. So we're using different techniques to tell a story to the person when the right person at the right time hits it. And one more one that's a really interesting, a brilliant conversation with a car manufacturer week before last, some of the team are here, where we were discussing actually onboarding their CRM data at actual grading level. So not just it's a particular car person, let's retarget them, but actually they're a considerer. They're in the wife persuasion stage, and actually looking at the creativity around that. And that's really
Is that an official stage, the wife persuasion stage?
It's in my house.
Taking note.
Guess who the boss there is? And then the flip side to that conversation as a publisher was how can we actually help you reverse that back onto your site with our content and the various comparisons we've done. Now that's when it gets really exciting around creativity, doesn't it? Around we know who the person is and where can we go? And if you've got brilliant relationships, as everyone on this panel would, with the advertisers and the agencies, you can get having some brilliant conversations. We'll test these. We'll test them by Christmas, and we'll find out what happens.
Great. Question about brand. Hitesh, when I called you up onto stage, I said you're one of my favourite brands. You are, because you're showing Crystal Palace games more often than before, which is very good for me. Is brand more or less important now in a world of the digital duopoly walled garden?
It's very important, right? Because for one thing, that's one of the things that helps advertisers on your site, right? If you've got a strong, credible brand, it adds credibility to the advertising. That's something we can go out there and sell that perhaps the platforms can't. When we're speaking to the platforms about stuff, having a powerful brand helps us in that conversation. Being a big brand advertiser helps us quite a bit, being as we spend an awful lot with both of these big platforms. So, you know, they're a little bit nice to us from a marketing point of view. And really that kind of, you know, having that confidence in your content and your brand is a great place to be. You know, I think it's very important in this new world. But I think we should experiment with some of these platforms. They're not all completely evil. And if you look at Sky News, right, news is quite a tricky one, right, because it is in danger of being commoditized, right? It's relatively undifferentiated content. It's perishable. And increasingly people are getting their news from these platforms, right? So if you want to get it out there, you might have to do that. Sky News recently decided to work with Snapchat. It's not a brand you associate with Snapchat at all, but they were looking to engage a different audience. They got a team in to develop content which is more relevant to Snapchat. And it's worked really well. You know, it's developed great reach. And that's a traditional brand using, you know, these newer platforms in a different way. But the reason Snapchat were entertaining the idea of even working with us, because we're not MTV, we're not Vice, was because of our brand, right? So yes, it is important.
City AM, fantastic brand.
Fabulous.
Protect it at your peril, or lose it at your peril. How do you approach the branding of City AM in a world of the walled garden where your content could just be alongside Reuters, alongside the Telegraph, and just...
Well, it becomes an issue because City AM have a brand, it's a small brand, it's not well known outside the city, but it has a certain authority. So it's not a piece of information about Ladbrokes share price, it's City AM telling you that. And if we lose that kind of cloak, if you like, of respectability, what makes our content different? It's financial news. You know, it's a bunch of facts, which is 80% of City AM's output is a bunch of facts. So how do we maintain that? And it's going to have to be a change in editorial. If our content ends up on these different streams, it has to be purposed for them. We can't expect content that lives within the City AM umbrella to suddenly translate perfectly onto Facebook, especially, or Apple or Google AMP, or however it's going to get, in effect, distributed and aggregated together with other people's content. So we have to change the way we write it, change the way, the tone of language we use. All those things will have to be tested. What probably isn't going to work is a direct, take our content and off you go.
Okay.
Because we just become one of the content makers then. And we think ourselves as publishers, but well, so's Google. You know, they're the guys running YouTube studios now to encourage their content creators. So how does our video stack up against their video? Well, it might suffer slightly, to be honest. You know, they've got 30 or 40,000 content producers. You have two.
So the phrase choppy waters was at the beginning of the panel when we were energised, so we've
Yes,
just got to re-energise ourselves. I don't know whether it's me because I'm on stage and it's quite bright up here, but it seems like it's all okay, isn't it? They don't seem too stressed about it. It's all fine. Is that right?
I think from our perspective is we're under to the point I made at the beginning.
So the choppy waters in 15 minutes have become really calm.
Far from it. We're excited what we're doing, but we realise how fast we've got to move, on making sure that we've got the best data in the automotive market and the best content and all those components. And we've actually got to, we've been running pretty fast, we've got to go faster and faster because the two major competitors, the other two I have are also brilliant companies, eBay and AutoTrader, move fast. And they are going to be doing the same things, building out their data, building out their content, building out their ads, and we will play with them in certain levels. So if we weren't moving fast, I'd be really worried. But we are. We're picking the game up. And any publisher who's not picking the game up needs to be really worried. Doesn't mean we're going to be successful, but at least we know we're running fast to a goal. And we kind of get a better understanding now what we're up against if we weren't clear before.
Great. Okay, that's a sensible one to the choppy
I
water.
think the reason it seems calm is we've spent a lot of time and money investing in our platforms and our content and our data. If we hadn't done that, you're right, it would have been pretty tricky, pretty disastrous really. But because we've done that, it feels okay, right? It's not brilliant, rather they weren't taking so much money. But we've worked hard.
It's only 38% apparently.
Well, yeah, you know.
Seems like quite a lot to me, but.
But you know, because of the work we've done, it feels okay. You know, I was at a conference the other day, and Yoav Arnstein, he's the head of LiveRail EMEA, stood up and presented some case studies about campaigns they've run. And Facebook targeted campaigns on Facebook didn't perform as well as Facebook targeted campaigns on publisher sites. That's a fact we should all take home with us if you're a publisher to go, you know what, let's have confidence in our product because even Facebook are saying the ads work better on our sites. That's quite a nice place to be.
Okay, move fast with confidence. Timing, do you think it's all okay or not?
It's been choppy for ages. It's always choppy.
Always choppy.
That's part of what it's about. It has to be choppy. Otherwise, we all sit there and carry on in the, I don't know, 10 years ago, I think, or maybe not 10 years ago, TV was dead, wasn't it? And no one would be watching TV. Well, still watching TV. It just depends whether they're watching it on catch-up or whatever. But people still watch TV. Again, we're talking about a world of targeting this word millennials, which we're really guilty of at Time Inc. And all publishers are really guilty of saying, I want to target millennials. Again, if we look at who's consuming most of the media and who's buying and who has the money to buy, it's 50 plus. Do you know what I mean? So we're sitting here targeting all these different things and saying all these kids have got ad blockers. No offence, it's kind of like Silver Surfers at home that are, that are doing this.
A bit less of the 50 plus, by the way. But.
Just the grey hair, that's all. So we have to understand that this market is exciting and there's always going to be threats from everywhere, which, again, keeps us on our game and makes us produce the best content going forward. And it's going to change. In a year's time, we'll maybe sitting here again, and it will be a different walled garden, or it will be a different threat. But, you know, you have to have, to your point, you have to have confidence in your brands and your content. Because if we are on Apple News, I hope that somebody's going to sit there and say, I want to go and read, or I want to consume something from one of the Time Inc. brands, being Marie Claire or whatever. Again, it's search, but within a smaller walled garden. We as publishers just have to understand that commercial relationship and how we push back on those walled gardens to gain commercial out of it. And if that is just a pure data play, then we have to learn and be clever in what we do with our data.
Great. John, moving fast, confidence, understanding, comprehension and acceptance of choppy waters.
Or sometimes just roll over. Maybe your content isn't that great. Maybe you are having trouble monetizing. Maybe you are, struggling with multiple stacks, waterfalls, latency, your site falling over all the time, dodgy ads. In which case, yeah, let them do it.
Okay.
They're going to charge you, 70%? Or they're going to deliver you, 70% of revenue. That may actually be a good deal for you. You may do better with that 70% from Apple than you would trying to go it alone. And go with it. But it must be a pragmatic solution.
So be prepared to be pragmatic,
yeah,
and potentially jack it all in.
And let them do it for you. Why go to the pain and suffering of trying to monetize it yourself if somebody will do the job for just take 30% off the top? Because we're all seeing the value chain getting more and more extended and everybody taking percentages all the way through. This may, for smaller publishers, be a way of contracting that chain and actually seeing a little bit more revenue, being able to buy a few more beers.
I think for smaller publishers, yes, but if you're not a smaller publisher, you've got a big cross-channel marketing opportunity. We can promote our websites on the biggest brand medium there is, bigger than Facebook and Google in this country. Not everyone can do that, but I think don't be so defeatist is my kind of last point on that.
Okay, we've got 5 minutes. Beer is chilling and the hosts have got to wrap up their day. So in the last 5 minutes, I'm going to put you all on the spot with a surprise question that we haven't discussed. It's probably a couple of headhunters in the room who might be interested in this. If you weren't working for your particular company, who do you think is doing the navigation of the digital duopoly really well? That's not saying who would you like to work for, Lee, because I know you're a terrible, loyal servant. And you can't say Pubmatic. 4 minutes, 55 seconds, go.
Awesome question. It's an awesome question.
Do the economists do it well? I'll help you out.
I only because I spent 2 years working in local media, but if local media finally aggregates itself properly, then I think that's a fascinating business because they've got the location anchor. And obviously there's rumours around 2 of them coming together at the moment. But all those big 4 collectively have the greatest reach of any media company in the UK. And I think they can do some amazing things around the data they collect locally.
Very good answer. You really are the most. How did I describe you? Let's go back to the beginning, because that's true. I've lost my place, but you weren't the focus logic-led one. That was Hitesh. So I'll go to the logic-led Hitesh now. If it wasn't Sky, you can't say Channel 4 because you've said that already. Where would you put your bet?
I work to fund things. Have you seen the size of Facebook's bonuses this year?
That was my answer.
Facebook.
Okay, money-wise, yeah, Facebook. But no,
I thought you had a logic-led approach.
Seriously. The logic is my wife would like me to earn more money. Seriously, the publishers that I think does it very well is The Guardian. Right? I think they navigate it very well. They tackle things head-on very promptly. Viewability is a great example of the stuff they've done there. I guess the challenge for them is they are a news publisher, and as I've said before, news is at danger of being commoditised, but I think they do a lot of things very well.
Working on the line now, you can't say Facebook.
So it was Facebook, that was going to be my line. I would look at doing my own business. I'd look at creating my own content, look at the opportunities that are out there by using those platforms. You've got music that we do really well on NME. You've got automotive. you've got news, you've got Vice coming up, all of these different things. There's such a big opportunity out there at the moment. So I would go off and do my own thing, because you've got instant platforms to go and find audiences that want to consume your content.
John, you are doing partly your own thing anyway, so you can't answer that.
I can't take that route, no. I'd probably look to one of the publishers that are being innovative with their use of data. I mean, that's terribly geeky and dull, but some of the guys that are trying to do audience extensions. So take advertisers, build a relationship with them and show them where their audience is elsewhere and buy that for them. There you go. There's a couple out there, I'm not going to name names. But
Any names?
Response Plus.
Okay.
We've been doing that for years.
I know, everybody's doing it.
Right, we haven't mentioned, we've got 2 minutes to go. What was the phrase I wrote down, which I didn't like because I didn't understand it? Waterfall optimization. We can talk about that over a beer after Pubmatic comes. So I would like the energised audience to thank the panellists with a big round of applause for their insights. Well done.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, panellists. Interesting debate. I don't know if we've navigated through the choppy waters there, but we are 15 minutes from navigating to a drink.